Today we close out our quarterback tiers as I rank the 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm Nathan Gustafson, and this is Clutch Time. I wanted to start this episode off by talking about the depletion of the word good in sports. So I'm just getting to the fourth tier of 9 in the NFL. So far I've gone through my 9 tiers of bottom tier starters, the one-man tier of Kyler Murray, the below average starters, the young unproven starters, and the at times studs coming off poor years category. Guys who performed very bad last year, who I think have the ability to be good quarterbacks. But just right now, as I'm getting to the top 12 quarterbacks in the league, for the first time I'm going to name a tier good quarterbacks. We often hear announcers who for some reason feel the need to relate and be kind to every player. This guy's good. Well, what makes him good? He's the 28th best quarterback in the NFL, but he's good. Okay? Maybe he's good compared to me. Maybe he's good compared to you. But compared to his other people playing his position in his profession, he's not that good. So, I'm tired of the depletion of the word good. And just right now, as I get to my tier 4 starters, this is the first category that I'm calling good quarterbacks, guys that are truly talented week in and week out. These are the good quarterbacks in the NFL. There's not 13 great quarterbacks. There's about 12 ones that are consistently good week in, week out that I feel I can put in that category. And we'll start off with number 12, Jared Goff. Now, Goff has been handed just about everything the last 2 years in the league. A brilliant coach, excellent receivers, and a fantastic running game. But with that being said, he's proven week in, week out that he's more than enough to give that supporting cast wins, to go in there and do his job, and to ultimately bring success to the Rams, regardless of whether or not the defense performs on a given night. We saw him go back and forth with Mahomes. He sort of is able to rise above in situations where maybe his defense doesn't show up, or Todd Gurley does have an off night. And I will say this, obviously he performed very poorly in the Super Bowl, but to get to the Super Bowl in just his third year in the league, I believe is very impressive. I thought he did a good job being a leader on a team that had a lot of big personalities, and I was actually very impressed that the Rams made it that far last year. Now, for this episode, there are 4 players that I believe a majority of my audience could find a little bit out of place. 2 players that I think you might feel are a little too low. 2 players I might think you might feel are a little bit too high, so I'm going to give an added explanation for those 4 players, and we will start off with number 11 as one of those 4, Matt Ryan. A lot of people would feel that Matt Ryan should be higher on this list, but let me go through some numbers about Matt Ryan. In his 11 years in the league, only 6 playoff appearances. A lot of people want to call him great and put him in that category, but compared to Russell Wilson, who's made it 6 out of 7 years, Andrew Luck, who's made it 4 out of 5 healthy seasons. Peyton Manning only missed the playoffs twice in his 19-year career. Tom Brady has never missed the playoffs one time before. And in a healthy season where he played more than half the games, this past season was the first time that Aaron Rodgers missed the playoffs in his career when he was healthy the whole year. Matt Ryan has always had elite weapons. He's come into great situations. He's always had a good coach. He's always had a good offensive coordinator. And since he lost Kyle Shanahan, we've seen a big drop-off in his performance between a disappointing season in which they were Super Bowl favorites, the year after that Super Bowl defeat in 2017, and then again last year with a very disappointing season, missing the playoffs. Obviously, a lot of that had to do with injuries to Keanu Neal and Deion Jones and the defense playing poorly. But Matt Ryan stat padded a lot of yards last year, but he didn't look good to me. It looked like he was unable to make certain throws that required a higher degree of arm strength. Compared to the other guys that I have in this top 12, it looked like he had a noodle arm. It looked like he wasn't able to drive the ball into tight coverage, and most of his yards came on deep passes to Julio and screen passes, and I think that he's been largely carried by the best wide receiver in the league for the majority of his career. Now, if you take away his MVP season, which I'll give you, he was phenomenal that year. His career averages are a little bit over 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 13 picks. Now, in an era where passing the ball is incredibly easy, and you've come into a situation where you have Julio Jones, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman, Roddy White early in his career, he He's always had people there to help him. He had Tony Gonzalez for a while. And if you take into account the outstanding nature of his teammates, those just are kind of mediocre numbers compared to what's been put around him for his entire career. That brings me to number 10 on this list, Deshaun Watson. Now, with Watson, honestly, my biggest issue is how long he holds onto the football for. He has an outstanding arm, he has outstanding athleticism, he can move excellently. My issue with him is the Houston offensive line gets a lot of heat, and somewhat rightfully so, for their inability to protect him. But he could also do them a lot of favors by not holding onto the ball for 10 seconds every play. And when you watch Texans games and the amount of sacks that he takes just because he holds onto the ball for too long, it really does set them back. But outside of that one sort of big flaw, and sometimes he has accuracy problems. When he's hot, he's certainly an accurate passer. And I think that's the majority of the time. There's some throws where he seems to struggle, but for the most part, he's a good thrower of the ball. He's mobile, he's fast, he's athletic, and he's a good leader. He's a national champion. There's a lot that I like about Deshaun Watson. Like I said, my one biggest issue with him is the holding onto the football for days at a time. And, those are killers on drives when you're taking sacks that you don't need to take because you're holding onto the ball for 10 minutes. And it really does hurt his team. But other than that, like I said, great leader, good thrower of the football, great athleticism. I think out of the young quarterbacks that have come out the last few years, outside of Patrick Mahomes, he's the first one that I would take. There's a lot to like there. I think that someone needs to coach him up and teach him how to take some checkdowns and just get rid of that football sooner. This will round out my good quarterbacks tier, and that's at 9, Ben Roethlisberger. While Ben was once great, those days are kind of behind him. I think he's still excellent at buying himself time, creating extra time in a play, and finding players downfield. I think he still throws a good deep ball, but we've seen a serious interception spike in him over the last 2 years of his career. And while the yardage numbers are still there, he has had serious problems throwing too many picks, turning the ball over too much, and he doesn't get up from hits the way he used to. I can tell that the age is kind of catching up to him, more so than with Rivers, Brady, and Breeze, the other three kind of older quarterbacks in the NFL. Time didn't quite catch him like it did Eli, but at the same time, you can tell he's not quite the same quarterback he used to be. Eventually on this list, I will make an all-time quarterback list, and you'll see just how highly I think of Big Ben Roethlisberger. But at this point in his career, it's hard for me to put him any tier higher than this. That brings me to the third tier of quarterbacks in the NFL. This will start at the 8th best quarterback in the league. These are really good quarterbacks. I'm not saying they're great. Some of them have been great at different points in their career, but these are really good quarterbacks. And that starts off with number 8, Philip Rivers. Now, if I was doing this list based off performance last year, I thought Philip was outstanding. He'd probably be 2 or 3 spots higher. But going into this year, another tally mark on his age. He gets another year older. He does lose Tyrell Williams on the outside, who was really fast. I thought he dropped too many passes, and I actually think this is going to set the stage for Mike Williams, the better Williams in LA last year, to develop into a bigger role. He's a big target, and I think there's a lot for him to bring to the table. They also bring back Hunter Henry, who missed the majority of last season. He only came back for that playoff game against New England. And I am a believer in Rivers. I think he's gotten a lot of undue criticism over the years for the Chargers' lack of success. He really hasn't had that much around him since the late 2010s. He went through a 6 to 7 year stretch there where there really wasn't much around him. But if you look at his career numbers, he's right there with Ben and Breeze. He's done a great job throughout his career of consistently keeping the Chargers in contention. He beat Peyton Manning in a couple of playoff games. The one thing that he's been unable to do is get over that hump and actually beat Brady. But that's not just Rivers. That goes for an incredible chunk of the league that's unable to do that. So not being able to beat the best quarterback-coach duo ever, I don't really hold too much against Philip. But like I said, this list is for this year, and for that reason I have to have him down at 8. This is the second player that I think you'll want a little bit of an explanation for, and that's me having Carson Wentz up at 7. Wentz is phenomenal, 6'5", strong, big, fast, agile. He doesn't take many sacks. He's able to throw the ball accurately at all levels, short, medium, and long down the field. And I just wanted to pull some stats up from the last time Carson Wentz was healthy. It was only his second year in the league. He led the Eagles to an 11-2 record. He was on pace to throw for over 4,000 yards and 41 touchdowns. And he likely would have won MVP that season. Brady won it, but that was largely because Wentz went down with injury. If he finishes out those last 3 games anywhere near the pace he was at, he was going to win MVP. Now, I know they went on to win the Super Bowl without him, and that's kind of a bad look, but without the home field advantage given by Wentz, I highly doubt that Eagles team would have been able to actually go on and win the Super Bowl. They had a very close game. I think the score was something like 15-10 with Atlanta, and they were a fade to Julio away from being bounced in the divisional round of the playoffs. Obviously, after that game, Nick Foles went on to have 2 great performances, both at home for the Vikings and in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. But with that being said, Wentz was really the one who got them there. And like I said, there's a predictive element to this episode. This is the guys I would take going into next year. And man, Wentz just is so physically gifted. The one thing I am a little concerned about was you heard sort of rumors from the Eagles locker room that a lot of players like Nick Foles more than Carson Wentz as a leader, that they rallied around him more. And that's obviously something that I wouldn't want to hear about my star quarterback. But if I'm judging talent, the very idea that Nick Foles could be on the level of Carson Wentz is laughable. Wentz is a generational talent, a remarkable player, and I have high hopes for him moving forward. And I would be mistaken to have Wentz anywhere below the tier of really good on this list. Given what he's proven he was capable of that second year when he would have won MVP had he not gone down with an injury. And given the overall potential that he has with his size, arm strength, accuracy, and athleticism, I love Carson Wentz going into this year. Coming in next on our list at number 6, and this will round out the really good quarterbacks tier, I have Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I want to say this about Russell Wilson. He came into the league at 5'11", took over a team, immediately started winning, and America kind of fell in love with him. We love the story of the little guy that could, at a position where we frequently tell incoming draft picks that they need to be 6'3" or 6'4" to have success. He sort of came in as the little guy and took over the league. He's electrifying, he's exciting, he's fun to watch. And if all that weren't enough, he was just an incredible man and an absolute gem of a human being off the field. And, as a result, a lot of people around the country, including myself, have great admiration for who Russell is. But with that being said, when ranking him compared to other NFL quarterbacks, if we're being completely honest with ourselves about where he should be ranked, a lot of the credit for the Seahawks' success over the past decade has been given to Russell Wilson, and I sort of want to challenge that today by going over some of their team's stats since he came in the league over the last 7 years. So since Russell came into the league, this is where the Seahawks have ranked in total defense over the last 7 years, starting with the most recent season going back to his rookie year. 16th, 11th, 5th, 2nd, 1st, 1st, 4th. Those are just incredible, outstanding numbers. For a defense to have that kind of prolonged dominance is just crazy. Think about the Broncos' Super Bowl winning defense in 2016 and where 15-16 season, and since then where they've dropped off to kind of a depth where they really struggled last year. Good defenses, unlike offenses where a quarterback can kind of be long-lasting, defenses aren't supposed to have that kind of prolonged dominance because a lot of it is based on physical ability, and that goes with age. But what the Seahawks defense has done is just crazy. How about scoring defense over the years? 11th, 13th, 3rd, 1st, 1st. That's where they ranked in scoring defense. How about rushing? 1st. Granted, 2 bad years in there, 23rd, 25th. And then 3rd, 1st, 4th, 3rd. They depend on power running from Marshawn Lynch and Chris Carson and those types over the years, and they depend on solid defense. That's how they win football games. Let's look at where they rank in terms of passing since Russell Wilson came in the league. 27th, 14th, 10th, 20th, 27th, 26th, 27th. You tell me what part of the Seahawks team is responsible for their success. Is it Russell Wilson, or is it an incredible running game and an incredible defense? Now, I know what you may be thinking. If Russell Wilson isn't responsible for the Seahawks' success, why do I have him this high? Well, for one, the last couple of years he has been largely responsible for their success. He's improved, he's taken on a bigger role in their team since their defense sort of started depleting the last 2 years. The other reason is that if you look at those big rushing numbers where they lead the league in that, it's not just Marshawn and Chris Carson. A lot of that does have to do with Russell and his ability to run the football and control the tempo of the game. The other reason is that he's phenomenal on third downs and in the fourth quarter, pretty much reigns supreme on the rest of the league. The way that he can create plays and extend the offense, he's an outstanding third down and fourth quarter quarterback, and those are the reasons why he's this high on the list. Okay, so earlier I talked about the depletion of the word good. Now I want to talk about the depletion of the word elite. Okay, if there's 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, there can't be 10 elite quarterbacks. That just absolutely diminishes the meaning of the word. I believe there's 5 elite quarterbacks, and I'll rank them now. Starting with tier 2, while they're still elite, they're old. Okay, both of these guys are going to be over 40 at the start of next season, and for that reason I have to sort of put them a little bit lower, and that starts with number 5, Drew Brees. Brees coming off a year in which he finished second in MVP voting. I felt he should have finished third. But he still had an outstanding year last year. They lose Mark Ingram, which I actually think is not such a bad thing. I think it's going to give Alvin Kamara, who I believe is the superior running back, more touches and more of an opportunity to flourish. And I look forward to what he'll be able to do for the Saints this year. Look, Brees is still awesome. He's still excellent at throwing the football accurately. He still brings a lot to the team. But you could sort of see the last month of the year, he didn't quite get up from hits the same. Like I was talking about with Big Ben earlier, there are a little bit of, there's little signs that the end could be somewhat near for him. But with that being said, the ability of Brees to what he does pre-snap and his ability to throw the football accurately are what has sustained his career to this point. Number 4 on the tier 2 elite but old is Tom Brady. Tom coming off a Super Bowl win in which I didn't think he played that well in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. But Tom Brady not playing up to what he did in his prime is still an incredible quarterback. I think his prime days are behind him. Unlike a lot of people, I wasn't all that impressed by his regular season last year. 28 touchdowns to 12 picks. He really kind of struggled the last month of the year. And that's happened to him the last few years, but somehow he just kind of keeps going. He survived in an easy division, getting home field advantage year in, year out. He is the best coach in the league. Now, I don't condone people calling Tom Brady a system quarterback. I think that's garbage. I think he is a top 2 to 3 quarterback to ever play the game. I think he is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. But that is largely due to what he did in his younger days in the league. I no longer think that Tom is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. If you look at what the top 3 guys who I have on this list are able to do, Tom kind of falls short of that at age 42. But while that may be the case, and while 2007 Tom and 2016 Tom aren't what he is now, he is still a very, very good quarterback. I would still consider him elite. And like I said, the fact that I have him at 4 on this list above every other player outside of the top 3 kind of tells you just how good he is. To be that high on my rankings at 42 years old is just kind of insane. But these 3 guys who I have in tier 1, elite of the elite, I would take over him. So I'll get started on that now. At number 3, I have Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes coming off an MVP season in which he was hands down the best player in the league. Sort of when guys are in the same tier, you can make the order any way you want, and I would kind of be okay with it. I could certainly be fine putting Patrick Mahomes at number 1 on this list. I have him at number 3 because I think he'll take a slight step back. But a step back from 50 touchdowns and only 12 picks is, still remarkable and excellent. Patrick Mahomes has the best arm in the NFL. His ability to extend plays is phenomenal. He's good pre-snap. He is a complete quarterback. I don't think that he'll fade like other mobile quarterbacks with big arms have, where there's been inconsistencies with them. I don't see that with Patrick Mahomes even a little bit, because he is so phenomenal pre-snap as well, and because he has such a cannon for an arm. He's so accurate. Patrick Mahomes will go down as one of the all-time greats. Going into this season, like I said, I see a slight step back. And like I said before, a step back from 50 touchdowns is not really a step back at all. And Patrick Mahomes is still going to be phenomenal this season. At number 2 on my quarterback ranking list, I have Andrew Luck. This is the last one of the 4 where I felt my audience might think they're out of place. So let me walk you through some numbers for Andrew Luck. In his rookie season, he took over a 2-14 team with minimal other improvements, meaning a 2-14 team didn't really get that many pieces other than him, and somehow the next year they were 11-5. This past year, he turned a 4-12 football team into 10-6 while having the youngest roster in football. He's had 2 MVP caliber seasons in which he threw for 40 and 39 touchdowns and led his team to 11-5 and 10-6 records, and that was in 2018 and 2014. In his 5 healthy seasons he's played in the league, he has a 51-28 record. He has 4 playoff wins. He's averaged roughly 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 15 picks. And those numbers are factoring in a rookie year in which he threw 23 touchdowns and 18 picks. Also, he has a 29 touchdown to interception ratio in the red zone in his career. A lot of those picks come on third downs. He's a very smart guy and a smart quarterback. And the only real blemish on his record are those interception numbers. What I'm trying to say is they're not as bad as it seems. But what's most incredible about the success of Andrew Luck's career so far is that for the most part, he's been on awful football teams. I remind you that while, you might not love other quarterbacks, receivers, this guy made an AFC championship game with an underdeveloped T.Y. Hilton, Griff Whalen, and Levon Brazil as his 3 wide receivers. Let that sink in. Okay, he had those 3 receivers, an awful offensive line, no running game, and he made an AFC championship game. Now, in that AFC championship game, he got dismantled by the greatest coach and the greatest quarterback of all time. But nevertheless, he made an AFC championship game with the 11th ranked yardage defense. A lot of that was because of his ability to stay on the field and keep those guys rested. The 19th ranked scoring defense and the 22nd ranked rushing offense. Okay, he didn't come into the league with Russell Wilson's star-studded defense. He didn't come in with an incredible running back and an outstanding running game. He had an awful offensive line. And the other sort of thing that people knock Andrew for that I want to address is his injury history. I remind you that this guy played 7 games with cracked ribs. He finished a game with a lacerated kidney. And, those are high-force injuries that are causing them. It's not non-contact. It's not like he's injury-prone. He went all of college, all of high school, and his first 3 years in the NFL without missing a game. These were non-preventable things of him just getting absolutely murdered because he played behind an awful offensive line for the first 5 years of his career. Last season, he played behind the exact opposite. Chris Ballard came in and, he righted the ship in Indianapolis. He gave them an offensive line to protect Andrew Luck, and you could see just how much Luck flourished in that environment last year. And I suspect the exact same going into this year. This guy is absolutely elite, and like I said, I'm fine with him being anywhere 1 to 3. These top 3 guys are the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And with Mahomes at 3 and Luck at 2, that brings me to my number 1 quarterback in the NFL, who is Aaron Rodgers. Now, last year was the first time Rodgers was even mortal in his career. He's been outstanding. Every year that he's been healthy, no matter how awful their defense is, no matter how awful their running game is, they've been in the playoffs. This is the all-time leader in passer rating in the NFL. His interception to touchdown ratio is phenomenal. He has been great every year he's been in the league. He's a 2-time MVP, a 1-time Super Bowl champion. The one knock I have on Rodgers is his leadership ability. Obviously, that report that came out in the offseason, that did not bode well for Aaron. It made him look pretty bad. And it sort of explains some of the rough patches for the Packers. With that being said, moving into this year, this is the best defense that Aaron Rodgers has had since he was a Super Bowl champion by far. He finally has a defense that can rush the passer. They have a couple good linebackers. Jerry Alexander was really good as a rookie. He's going into his second year. I expect the Packers to move forward this year in a way they haven't in a really long time. Even last year with a bum knee, Aaron Rodgers only threw 2 interceptions the entire year. He was outstanding. He is an all-time talent, and absolutely, at this point, I believe is a top 3 quarterback in the league. I'm fine with you having him 1, 2, or 3. I believe going into this year, though, that there's no quarterback I'd rather have than Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be it from us today. Thank you for watching. Make sure you tune into our next episode where I let you know who the best basketball team in LA will be next year, and I evaluate that matchup. Thanks for watching.